Last month I asked for your questions, and in this video we'll have the answers to some of them. I'm sorry if you asked a question and we weren't able to get to it. I hope we'll be able to do this again sometime in the future. Also, I want to thank Tom and Christopher for taking time out of their schedules, especially during the busy holiday season, to help me out with this video. I'll get us started with a couple of general questions. First of all, how did you guys get started with HGMM? Well, I invited most of the contributors to join HGMM because I like the content that they produce on their own channels, and I had an opening for a show topic that I wanted to include them in on HGMM. Some people contacted us directly with their own ideas for joining the team. In fact, if you would like to contribute, we have a form you can fill out, and so if it's a home-related topic that we think will make a good series of videos, we may ask you to join us. I'll include a link down in the description if you'd like to get involved. Meximex wants to know if we have ever actually physically met each other. Most of us only know each other virtually and on Skype, but I'm happy to have met Hyla, Heather, and Chris, the Idaho painter, in the real world. The cables behind our sitting room TV are an absolute mess, with consoles, DVD players, and media streamers all adding to the spaghetti. Do you have any good cable management solutions? Well, Chris, to me, cord management is one of the most frustrating parts of technology. I really hope someday everything will just become wireless, but until then, one of the best, simplest solutions I've seen recently is the one that Heather recommended in her video about transforming ugly spaces in your home. It's just a plastic container to hide all the cords. Of course, you're still left with the individual cords that go to each device or component, but this solution takes care of, I think, the messiest part, where they all plug into the power strips. But I'd love to hear from any of you who have more creative solutions. Not Only Wood wants to know if we have any plans for a welder or metal fabricator on HGMM. Probably not. HGMM is a home lifestyle channel, and our mission is to help viewers turn their living spaces into homes. We focus on DIY projects, decorating, gardening, food, and automotive topics that we think will appeal to most homeowners and renters. We do have occasional projects to build things, but only if it fits in the home improvement, decor, theme, and can be easily accomplished by anyone without any special skills or tools. Mere mortals.
Debbie Shipman asks, is there a cheap solution for curing blossom rot on your tomatoes? The answer is yes, but first off, what is blossom rot? Ultimately, it's a calcium deficiency for your tomatoes. Your tomatoes need to take up calcium through the soil, and it has to be soluble. So first off, you have to be watering your tomatoes properly. Not too much, but not so little, and they have to be properly aerated, otherwise you'll get a different kind of rot, other than that black rot on the bottom of your tomato. So how to get the calcium there? You can certainly do ground limestone. I've seen that work well in the past, but if you want a cheap solution like you asked, ground up eggshells. Grind them up, put them around the base, let it soak in, and that should help a little. Wig Workshop asks, when is the best time to plant raspberries? I live in Central Ohio, United States. First off, great. I love raspberries and other perennial fruits. The best time to plant them, if they are fresh, is going to be 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost if you're putting them in the ground. If you're doing pots, do it in the summertime after the frost is done. But it's definitely a springtime thing. Check with other people that have raspberries in your area. Oftentimes the shoots are coming up at the beginning of spring, and they come up with way more than anybody truly wants, so you can get them for cheap or for free. And as far as what time springtime comes to you in Central Ohio, be sure to check out my video on cold hardiness zones on HGMM for more details. Jason asks, what about the difference between raised beds and traditional gardening? And then also, what options do I have for shade gardening, particularly with herbs? Well, the traditional gardening versus the boxes, that's too long to get into in this short Q&A. But for shade, there are a lot of vegetable and herbs that actually prefer shade. Kale, leaf lettuce, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, beets, carrots. There's a lot to choose from. Just because you can't get these great big bean stalks that love the sun doesn't mean you can't have green in your shady garden.
Reiner Schlag wants to know about using this, the circular saw, and what's the best way to set it up when you're cutting with a straight edge guide.
When I make those kind of cuts, I always support the saw on the wide side of the plate. And the reason for that is simple. The bottom of the saw, which is called the bed, the wide side is where the motor is. So when you're making the cut along a guide, you have a lot more control. If you make it on the narrow side, you have a lot higher likelihood that the saw could drift, and you kind of waste the purpose of having the straight edge guide. Also, I always like to make the cut with the waist end on the narrow side, that way it falls off. If you make it with the waist side on the heavy side, when the cutoff is ready to fall, the saw could fall as well, and it's just a little bit of safety thing, but it's not that big of a deal. So let me make a cut with this and I'll show you what I mean. So I want to keep good contact up against the fence. And just like that, I have a nice straight cut. So I hope you found this power saw tip helpful and you can use it next time you want to make a straight cut.
Lance Everett has a question about drywall repair. Once you have it repaired, what's the best way to match texture and or paint to the wall?
So as far as matching paint and texturing goes on your wall, paint stores, the big box stores, they're all going to have a matching computer where you can get this matched up. They'll match the color right for you. As far as texturing goes, really it's just trial and error. What I usually do is, depending on what the texture is, after I prime the wall, I just get some drywall mud, and if I have to thin it out, I will, so I can work it. And I'll just put some on the wall, kind of thick or whatever. And then what I'm matching, it's really, I'll use anything I can think that can match it, whether it's a textured roller, a sponge, an old paintbrush, even a wire brush. I mean, you could just tap the wire brush, or that's going to get you a little bit of a stippled effect. And the reason I prime first is because, especially if I have to thin this down, I don't want the water leaching back into my wall. So, and you try it. If it doesn't work, you just scrape it off and you try again. If it's a sanded texture or some other kind of popcorny type texture, you may have to go to the home center and buy some additive and mix it into your mud. It's really a myriad of things that you can do to try to match the texture of a wall. Like I said, it's mostly just trial and error. Sometimes it takes me several times to get it right. In the end, I'm never going to get it exactly right, but I can usually get it close enough. Once you paint it, you're not really going to be able to tell. So just try it, Lance, and you're going to do a pretty good job. So I hope that helped you out.
Thank you all for your questions. I hope we can do this again in the future. And of course, I want to thank all of you for supporting HGMM. And if you enjoy HGMM, please consider telling others and sharing our videos. That goes a long way to not only help us grow, but it helps the team members to grow their own channels. We're really looking forward to 2017. I'll see you guys later.